So my name's Diane Parkins, and the folks at YCRED have asked me to create a little video about Halloween. So I'm just going to tell you a wee bit about this. And what I'd like to do is tell you about the history a little bit, about the differences between the Scottish and the American version of Halloween as you know it, which is what the English now tend to use too, and the Halloween of my youth. So basically, just a quick run through. So in terms of history, Halloween is a Celtic festival from the northern lands. So you can see here, this is a little bit of Scotland and the Wallace Monument in Stirling. It's the Halloween that we know is actually would have previously been called Samhain, and it's the period where we've just had the harvest, and so the autumn is meeting with the winter. And it's a time where we give thanks, where people come together to give thanks for the bounty, for all the food they've managed to grow and collect in readiness for the winter. It's a difficult time as well, because it's perhaps the only time, the last time they're going to see everybody before the winter. And it's also, as it's on that cusp between the winter and the autumn, it's when the door between the worlds is supposedly the thinnest. And so you're more able to speak to the spirits, both the good and the bad, and you're asking the bad ones to leave you alone and be kind. So it's an important time, and it's a time when everybody would have got in the harvest, give thanks for it, and they would have a big community celebration with a big bonfire. This bonfire was a really central part of the spiritual life of the community, and played a huge part at the end of the day when they'd had a big party. Everybody, every community, every little house would take some of that fire back with them in what was called the jack-o'-lantern. Now, it wasn't made of a pumpkin, it was made of a turnip. So this is a much harder root vegetable, bigger than a potato, twice as hard. And it's there for this gives them protection, warmth and light for the winter to come. And it's got the protection. Those embers must be kept going for the whole of the winter, keep the fire going for the whole of the winter, and protect the family from what is to come. So I talked about the difference between Scottish and American. Many of you will be familiar with the American Halloween, all the candy, the trick or treat. So where if somebody doesn't give sweets to the people coming round dressed up, they might have a horrible trick played on them, and some of these are not very nice. Well, that's not what we do in Scotland, or certainly wasn't what we used to do. Certainly guising is a part of it. So guising is where you dress up, disguising yourself as something different. So here, traditionally, we would dress up as spooky characters like ghosts and witches and ghouls, that kind of thing. Although that doesn't have to be, it can be cowboys as well, I guess. So you go around guising, looking for sweets and treats. And this loot and swag and booty, in my day, it tended to be the peanuts. We would get loads of monkey nuts for some reason. And then we'd also get apples and satsumas. And my favourite was the tablet made out of condensed milk and sugar. And then the sweets. And what I don't show here is the money that you sometimes got. We would get money, but there's a good reason for that. Because we would be doing a turn. There's no free lunch, as they say. So if you wanted to get your swag, you didn't just turn up and knock on the door. You had to do a turn. So you had to sing, or you had to tell a joke, or recite a poem, or you had to dance. You had to be able to do something. And then you got paid in sweets. So Halloween party games. So apple ducking Party games, to be honest, were not such a thing. Because we tended not to have a party. That was perhaps what my English cousins might have done. But apple ducking was certainly something we might have done in the school. And basically, you have water in a bowl, and either you use your teeth and you have to put your face in the water to get and grab an apple with your teeth, or another version was you stood in a chair and you had a fork in your mouth, and you'd let the fork go so it could spear an apple for you. Another version, another thing to get really messy with was donut munching. And you have to try and eat it without, you're not allowed to use your hands. Now, if they wanted to make it really difficult, they'd put a blindfold on you to make it just that bit harder. Now, I said that my Halloween was a wee bit different from the ones that perhaps you imagine. So in my day, certainly when I was little, my mum and dad, well, my mum would take my brother and I dressed up as witches and ghouls from door to door, and we'd chap on the door. And as I said, we'd have to do a turn. But you don't do that at the door. You get invited in to the living room, and you'd find all the relatives in the living room waiting for you, expecting a bit of a performance. And so if you were really good, you got all your swag. But if you were really lucky, they would give you money. And this was something that I really, really enjoyed. So when I was little, we might have only got sweeties and things like that, and only did the houses on the street. You'd chap on the houses on the street. But as I got older, I'd be doing that on my own. And so I have to admit, even when I was 17, I was still going house to house round the whole estate. I think that must have been some 50 to 100 houses. And I would do really well out of this because I was quite good at singing in those days. I don't think I am. I'd try that today. But in those days, I would sing a Scottish folk song, and often I'd be asked to sing a second one, and I'd get given money as well as sweets, which was brilliant because I could go up to the big town before Christmas on the money that I had saved. So it was something that I really enjoyed. And my English cousins, this was not something that they did. In fact, it was very rare for my English cousins to even have a Halloween party. Maybe their parents would, but it wasn't something that they generally did. Not quite sure why, but it wasn't a thing down south. Not until we saw so many of these videos from America, the films. And then that's when the trick or treat came back in to England. So I'm hoping that the old traditional ways are still held fast at somewhere in Scotland, and that this Halloween there'll be living rooms full of young people singing songs and telling jokes and keeping people happy. I hope you found this interesting, and I'm sure you've got something very similar in your hometown or in your country. Okay?